Hello and welcome to the East Lampeter Township Public Meeting. All participants are now informed that this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. The general public is therefore able to join the meeting by connection through the internet or by calling in by phone. The public is also able to observe the meeting on the township's YouTube channel. Please continue to check the Township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the Township's website. Please be reminded that this meeting is being video and audio recorded and will be posted to the Township's YouTube channel for viewing. The meeting will now proceed with the chairman calling the meeting to order and identifying all other members present in the meeting room and those joining the meeting via Zoom. The chairman will then confirm those members joining by Zoom can be heard.
All right, good evening and welcome to the Monday, June 6, 2022 meeting of the East Lampeter Township Board of Supervisors. All members of the board are present in the room this evening. There are no members on Zoom. If you would please rise and join with me in pledging allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There are agendas at the back of the room. There's also a sign-in log back there. If you are here and you would please sign in before you leave this evening, we need that for the public record. Okay, item number 3 is public comment. Before we begin public comment, just make a brief announcement. There was an executive session of the board before tonight's meeting to discuss issues related to upcoming union contract negotiations. Okay, item number 3, public comment for non-agenda items, things that are not on the agenda for tonight. I'm going to come up and just state your name. You'll need to actually talk directly in the mic so that the folks on Zoom can hear you.
Susan Snyder, 435 Mount Sydney Road. I'm here for 3 things: traffic, water, and noise. I looked at the noise ordinance. I pulled it up because they were setting off fireworks. And I saw that fireworks could be set off until 11 o'clock at night, whereas all other noise has to stop at 10. Why is there a variation between fireworks and noise?
Ralph, any reason why ordinance calls for a variation those times?
Loud fireworks. I think 10 o'clock is needed enough.
For the most part, firework regulations are state law, and we're limited in what we can do with respect to fireworks. I have not looked at the noise ordinance recently, but we can certainly, we can certainly review that and see if that is something that the board could consider changing.
Now you told me it was totally up to the state.
Well, the state law on fireworks essentially is governing law, and we're limited as a result as to what we can regulate with respect to fireworks. We're preempted by state law.
That development behind me, when I asked for a buffer between that development. I've lived in that house for 64 years. And the noise level is atrocious. We have 13, there's 13 codes back there, 13 more mowers going all the time. We never had mowing on Sunday. I know not everyone has that same thing, but now we have 13 mowers going on at different times. There's a couple families back there with kids that scream, and I am around children, and their screaming is excessive. They're screaming, they scream at the top of their lungs. I mean, my quality of life has gone down tremendously with that development. And I don't know, I think when you put a new development, the quiet village, you need to have buffers. That was a big mistake. There should have been a buffers. Traffic. I know you had, Kristen, you were traveling at such and such a speed, and we were heading towards Old Philadelphia Pike. That was not operating for about 4 days that was posted. I went past it, and it was non-functioning. It didn't register.
Did it
didn't register my speed. When we came from the Old Philadelphia Pike up to Horseshoe Road, it would register, but not the other way.
So we had two of the signs out at the same, did the one operate at all, or did it just stop working?
Didn't stop.
The battery probably went. So sorry about that.
I did send a thing to the state, and they said it is up to the township. It is the township's responsibility to set a speed limit and traffic things on that road. It's not the state's responsibility. I wrote to PennDOT. That's what I was told.
State road.
It's your responsibility. There's a speed limit of 35 in that area. Additional schools, kids riding bikes and stuff. It needs to be dropped.
Susan, who did you speak to about the,
I sent an
Speed
email
limit.
to them. I can give
you
you.
could just forward to Ralph, whoever's answering your email from the state would be great. Okay, thank you.
The Amish had one of their final days of school, you know, and they have a get together and stuff, and I saw the Amish families walking along Mount Sydney Road trying to get to their home. It was scary. And even tonight when I came here, I no longer back out of my driveway, I pull out, I turn in the yard, pull out because it's not safe. And I looked both ways, and I went to look down towards Old the Pike. And by the time I went to pull out, someone was speeding up over the hill, and I had to back in to avoid being hit. That's the type of thing. People are not following the speed limit. You have no clue. It's hard to judge when people are speeding. And if you have 2 tractor trailers passing on that road, you better not be on the side of it. That road is not intended for tractor trailer traffic. The big dump trucks are coming up with major loads on. They're traveling at 50, 60 miles an hour. And that's not just during the daytime hours. That's at night. At 2 in the morning, you can hear the truck traffic going on that road. My house actually shakes. My house was built in 58, and they had a blast because it was rock underneath. And it's a brick house, and it's solid. And the whole house shakes because of the truck traffic, the speed that they're going on the road. Something needs to be done.
So Ralph, my understanding that state is going to be driving what happens on that road.
It is a state highway. And so I'm
Again, they said, when I said truck traffic should not be allowed on the road, speed. And they said, that's up to your township. That's not our fault.
well, in my experience, the shred of truth that's in there is that the township can ask PennDOT to change the speed limit. So that is within the board's authority to request a change to the speed limit if the board would want to do that. What happens if they decide to do that is that PennDOT then does a speed study on the road. And based upon their findings, basically, they measure existing traffic and how fast existing traffic is going on that road. And they use what's called the 85th percentile to determine what the speed limit posting is that they will allow. So they do that analysis. That was part of the reason why we invested in the the signs, the electronic signs, to try to, help with some education for the motorists, so they know how fast they're going. And we've been moving those signs around to different places in the township, because Mount Sydney Road's not the only place that people speed.
I was down at C&J's auto place, to take kids from the strip down to the park. Police escort for those children. So that traffic is terrible. I know it's not, it's just society in general does not adhere to this.
Right. So the signs aren't always a solution. We do, the police run enforcement details out there on Mount Sydney Road as well as the other
I
roads.
have to know how many stops a week on that little permit.
I don't know the answer to that.
How would I get that?
I can inquire with the police chief about,
He's not very accessible, police chief. There should be some kind of email you can forward concerning. You have to call the number.
you can, if that's been difficult, you can certainly email me and I can make sure that he gets it, but he's usually pretty responsive. So I'm sorry that you've had that experience.
We'll get you some information. Ralph, we'll get it from the department. We'll see what's being done to enforce the speed limit and see if there are some statistics we can share with you on the amount of stops or enforcement mechanisms that have been going on Mount Sydney. I think back to Ralph's point, we're trying to invest in both personnel and also some tools to address the issue all around the township. Sure, we're looking at all of our local roads and we're seeking federal, state, and local resources to put into all of our roads. The issue that we have in Mount Sydney, as you know from living there for 60 years, is there's nowhere to go with the road. We have to be going into people's front yards to do something to widen the road, to put a walk path or a buggy path or anything that we could come up with that would address that. We have to be cognizant of the neighborhood itself. We don't have to pay them, they're there now.
24/7.
I get it. I hear it. So let's get some just statistics if we can, back to Susan and help her to see what the department's doing there and what kind of traffic initiatives we're taking, and let's keep the lines of communication going if we can. You said you had water too, I think, Susan, is that correct?
I'd like to know how many Cherokee that the township is on.
We'd have to do some investigating to try to determine that.
And
Okay.
is that on the water? Was that the water?
When someone opens an Airbnb, do they have to do anything with you guys?
Ralph, do you want to describe
Do you
to
want to cover the zoning?
Mrs. Snyder what we do under zoning?
I want to know what it is.
Sure. We can certainly reach out to you, Tara.
Sure. The zoning ordinance is going to determine, what process they need to follow. And we can look that up. It's also online if you want to look it up yourself.
And was that the water issue you had,
Does
Susan?
the zoning ordinance look at how many people are in it, and do they look at the source of water?
Clarify your question.
Well, if you have an Airbnb, you want
So your question is does the ordinance take into consideration when approving an Airbnb, the needs for water, electric, and sewer, and septic, and so forth.
So how do you determine what is what is required? Because I know there's a new building down.
And once again, the ordinance requires the applicant to prove that they have the utilities coming to the home or to the building. I don't know that the ordinance requires, Tara, that there's a certain gallons per minute or capacity. Thank you.
The water table equipment down to nothing. What's going on? And I hope that someone can give me the $20,000 to build a well. Because the people back in the new development, Joe, are not thrifty with water at all. We just had a major rain one evening. I went out my backyard, 6 a.m. in a sprinkler or 10 by 10. Just
As you know from our previous conversation, Susan, there's state statutes guiding what we can and can't do when it comes to water. I'd be interested to know who you're talking to and what they're telling you. So once again, I would just reach out to Ralph, let him know if someone's giving you some other story. But we last time we worked through that approval process and you were part of that conversation, we detailed out for you what we can control when it comes to water and what not just the state, but the Constitution allows for someone to do on that property.
Stormwater management. We have the phosphorus running off. Why are if their lawns sprayed with fertilizer? Why don't they get more charge? Than some of the other fertilizer. Just a question. It's a lie.
We, as you know, the stormwater ordinance is designed for square footage of impervious surface. And that's what we're allowed to deal with. So, okay, thank you, Susan. Anyone else? Public comment, non-agenda items, public comment. Okay, all right. Number 4, consent agenda. By Ken, gentlemen, 4A, the agenda for tonight's meeting, I just need to make one slight adjustment. I'm going to add under 8 action items 8C, an item I'll be adding, it's the acceptance of bids for several township works items that were for sale on municipal bid. That will be on 8C. That's the only change to tonight's agenda. So 4A is approval of the June 6th, 2022 Board of Supervisors meeting agenda. Approval 4B of the minutes of the Monday, May 9th, 2022 regular meeting, of which I was absent. 4C, approval to pay invoices from all of our various funds. It's a total of $718,099.21. And for the public record, that would be $190,485.31 to the city of Lancaster for our quarterly sewer treatment charges, $80,131.32 to H.L. Weicker and Sons Incorporated for the new impound area construction, $26,275 to New Holland Auto Group for a 2022 police vehicle, $65,025 to the township fire companies for the second quarter contributions, and that would be $16,256.25 times 4, $33,821.11 to Motor Technology Incorporated for the sewer pump, and then $10,000 for our quarterly library contributions. And for the past number of years, we've divided that up by township resident use. So it's $4,600 to Lancaster, $3,400 to Manhunt Township, and $2,000 to Peckway. Any public comment on the consent agenda? Hearing none. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
The motion's by Corey, second by Mike. Questions or concerns? Hearing none. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Item number 5, we have a presentation from Whitmer Fire Company on the fire apparatus purchase plan. Whitmer has been working with the rest of the members of our Emergency Services Committee to evaluate their needs for an upcoming fire apparatus purchase. They've got some ideas, and they'd like to make a presentation to the board. So, representatives from Whitmer. Good evening, sir. How are you? Good. You got a, yeah, perfect.
My name is Chris Callahan from the Whitmer Fire Company. We have a presentation. I can read through it line by line if you want me to, or you can read it and ask questions. What do you guys-
Tell you what, Chris, just make your discussion with us and we'll just talk, and then if we need to reference it, we can. So you guys have had an idea come up and you had a conversation with ESC, and that idea is to do what?
So just a little bit of history on the tanker. It's a 1994 Peterbilt New Lexington. It was due to be replaced in 2014. At that point, it was still running strong, so we pushed it out to 2019. When that time came up, it was still running strong, so we pushed it out to 2024. At this point, we're having major problems with it. And we are looking at the option of refurbing it, which is to put a new pump in, new wiring, new lights, emergency lights, repair paint. It goes through.
Does that refurb get you to 2024? Does that refurb get you to X?
Our goal is a minimum of another 10 years. We're thinking it would be at least 10 to 15.
Okay. The rest of the ESC, what are their thoughts, Chris?
We had a lot of discussion at the last meeting. The consensus that we came to was to recommend the refurb, to move ahead with it, and present to the Board of Supervisors to do the 40/60, which Whitmer had come up with numbers, and with the savings that with what we were saving the township and the fire company, there was a question asked about the township doing 100%. Because the new tanker is 582,000, and the refurb is 197,000 with a 10% extra figure. So the recommendation that the ESC is giving is to go with the 60/40 at this point so that we can move ahead. And then the 4 township companies are going back and discussing what they think should happen on the 100%, and then make that presentation to the ESC.
So for about 118 at the 60%, the community would pitch in through tax dollars through the apparatus replacement plan
At the 60/40.
at the 60/40. And the ESC is currently saying, go before the Board of Supervisors, make the presentation on the 40/60 plan
Correct.
for the refurb, and then come back to the ESC for a further conversation on how you might be able to approach the board for a modification to that, I guess.
Correct, for refurbishment.
Okay, okay, all right. Thoughts, guys? We've seen the presentation. You know the numbers.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Roger.
So what was the cost of the major repairs from 16 through 21? What was that lump sum dollar amount?
Not happening. You're talking about the page that we have with the, oh, actually, it's the, he's not put it on.
Count on Matt to give you numbers. There you go.
Maybe I don't
As you
have the
can see,
updated.
it has the list there.
Yeah. So it looks like 24 grand, Roger, would be your answer to your question. So in 14, Chris, when you guys were 20-year time horizon set to move it on and replace it, you guys decided to keep it and you put about $24,000 into it. And that got you to where you're at now.
And the chassis, the engine, the transmission, the major components of the tanker are still very strong.
Mhm.
As you saw in the presentation, these trucks are built, for a lot more mileage than what this one has.
Questions?
How long would a
Ethan?
new tanker last? If you were to buy a new one, how long would you expect that to last in service?
Well, the plan that the township has is to replace everything in 20 years, every 20 years. I guess it just depends on how well you take care of it. This 1994 tanker definitely lasted longer than 20 years. Is there a possibility of that happening? Yeah, of course. With the newer apparatus, it actually doesn't last as long as what the older apparatus did. With your new emissions, you probably need to rebuild the engine, at between 700,000 and 800,000 miles, which fire companies don't reach either. But the emissions do take life away from the engine.
And then if it's the replacement rate's about 20 years, and then how much of the asset value is typically sticking around if you're replacing it 20 years versus in this case, a 94 that's been running almost 30, go another 10, how much of that? Your trade-in value, what's your is that's what I'm trying to get at, is what's the actual per year cost to us on plan A versus plan B?
I do not have those numbers. Sorry, Ethan.
Because I know that the current, from digging back through the ESC meeting minutes, the 20-year replacement also allows you to have more of that asset value.
Correct. When you resell, that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah, you're maintaining a decent amount of resale value, whereas refurbing now, getting another 10 years out of it, it's going to be worth less, but you're also getting 10 years out. It's easier to.
Once you're at 20 years to 30 years, it will not impact that much when you're speaking percentage wise, especially for a straight tanker, because it's not an engine. It's not a ladder truck. It's not a rescue. It's just a tanker. It hauls water. So,
And I think our conversation at the meeting talked also about its use and the importance of it now, but perhaps not as much in the future. So for this to be back on the replacement schedule, and let's assume we do get that, 10 to 15 year piece. Now you're back on, you're out to the schedule of 2034 or so, but I think depending on how the township approaches fire hydrant, water access and so forth, that piece may not be as valuable.
as
And
important as it once was.
Right.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it was mentioned that it might not be replaced at that point.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Mike, for adding that context. Mike is our representative on the ESC, so it's helpful to have a board member there. Corey, question?
Yeah, no, I was going down the path of Ethan. Like Ethan already has it figured out in Excel in his head. Future value, the value of the apparatus after 10 years or after 20 years if it was a new apparatus. But I think the ESC came up with a good recommendation to look for refurbishment or refurbish it. It looks like it's only 3 months to refurbish, which is unbelievable. Compared to new would take 2 years plus. So yeah, I mean, ESC does a great job of getting together and collaborating and recommending, and can see us moving forward with the recommendation at this point.
Good. Pleasure. Good question. One of the items, Mike, I would recommend, and Chris as well, is looking at how this change, which is great idea. I like, we're thinking outside the box. We're looking at the potential of not even having to replace this unit, but how does that impact the rest of the apparatus replacement plan schedule? And I know you guys will do that on the ESC. So I think thinking creatively, thinking outside the box is great. You're thinking strategically that this may not even be needed, but how does it affect the full apparatus replacement plan? It's always been designed to think long term. And back to Ethan's point is, at one point our analysis said there's a decreasing value to this asset that we need to get rid of it soon enough that we don't deplete all that value in it is now a complete loss. Okay. Further.
That was discussed.
Yep.
I don't think there was any radical change being proposed to that. Now, this is a unique situation, but time will tell to see how the other pieces work out.
Thank you. Appreciate
I
it.
think something to keep as we look at bringing some of these plans in line is looking at our water usage and looking at how we can bring new piping to areas where we would typically need a tanker. If we could get a hydrant out there, what would that cost be? And then saying, all right, we're spending 20 to 30 grand a year to have a tanker. If we spend 30 grand a year, how long would it take to put hydrants where we need to put them?
Agree. I know when we were looking in 2007, Ralph, at the bridge replacement on Strasburg Pike, there was that conversation, gas lines, water lines, sewer lines, where are the places to best invest, and do we turn to the city because of the water authority and East Lampeder Sewer Authority? Do we turn to them? UGI. I think at one point I think you were on the board. 896. We did the full loop with the city. So always looking at how our infrastructure can be upgraded to support those kinds of growing needs in the communities. Okay, no more conversation, guys. Okay, so Chris, I think you're looking for this board to give you something to take back to the ESC.
Yeah, we would be looking for a yes or a no so that Whitmer can either start or figure out another avenue.
Sure, exactly. Yep. My understanding is the ESC sent you here saying we support the 40/60 on the refurb, but it sounds like they may want to continue some conversations as well too. So, what are your interests?
I think that if we're going to keep the current funding the same, then the 40/60 makes sense. I mean, your total cost is approximately the same if a new one would last for 29 years versus this one lasting for 10 years. They're both going to cost about 20 grand a year. So it's one of, if you look at the straight dollar amount, it's one thing, but how long you stretch that out for 10 years or for 29 years, and it's the same dollar amount.
Yep, same cost. So, motion. Give me some direction. Let's send Chris out of here with the.
I'll make a motion that we approve Whitmer's request for the apparatus in question, the 94 tanker vehicle refurbishment to be done in 2022 instead of following the current schedule in the amount of 60% of the cost.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Mike, second by Ethan. The motion is for 60% of the refurb costs, 60% by the township. Okay, all right, understand the motion? Good. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Good to
Thank
see you
you.
guys.
Thanks for your
Take
work,
care.
guys.
Thanks, Whitmer. Appreciate it, guys. Okay, moving on. Under old business, 6A, we have a request for reduction of financial security, Fisher 2850 Harvest Drive. Is there anyone here for this? No? Ralph, Township Engineers reviewed the improvements. Is there a motion? Motion?
Motion to approve the escrow account reduction for 2850 Harvest Drive.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion by Roger and second by Ethan. Questions or concerns? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Okay. 6B, a request for reduction of financial security for the volleyball corner, 2007 Lincoln Highway East. Anyone here from the public? No one. Okay. Once again, Township Engineers review recommending a reduction of $4,428.03, leaving a balance of $1,432.74. For motion?
Make a motion to reduce the volleyball corner based off of the engineer's recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motions by Ethan, second by Mike. Questions or concerns? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Okay. Thank you. Item number 6C, 1782 Lincoln Highway, Land Development Plan number 21-32. It is 1782 Lincoln Highway. Step forward if you would, your name and who you're representing, and you're going to need to speak directly in that mic. Tall guy, raise that up. There you go. Perfect. Keep her going.
Just take it out and hold
Or
it.
just take it out and hold it. You can take it out and
Not
hold
off
it.
to a
too.
good start.
Sometimes it's even easier if you just take it out and hold it too.
Ben Craddock with the Lancaster Civil Engineering Company, here with Alvin Engel from Engel Architects, just moved to the front row there. But
You
know,
Ben,
when-
you can just take it out, Ben. if
the
you need to.
embarrassing thing is when you're an engineer.
And you can't operate a
anything like this that
mic.
goes wrong, it's just, not a good look.
You're in trouble, Ben.
I'm here with Elvin Engel. Elvin owns a little over an acre property facing on the corner of Lincoln Highway East and South Eastland. It's currently 2, maybe 3 lots. We're proposing to reconfigure the lot. There's an existing house that fronts on Lincoln Highway East. Make that lot a little bit smaller. And then we're proposing 12 units of apartment infill on a roughly, I think it's 0.8 acre remainder there. We provided parking, stormwater facilities, access, buffers. I'm happy to answer any questions you have or go down through your engineer's letter.
Yeah, you can start down through there, Ben. We'll have questions for sure.
Sure thing. I'm looking at Scott Haynes' letter dated May 16th. I'll start with the waivers and modifications. We have several waivers, modifications that we're asking. The first one is preliminary plan. We're not planning to phase it, so we're asking that we proceed as a preliminary/final plan. The second deferral there we have withdrawn on Scott's letter. The third one is curbing along new streets. We are asking that be deferred. We are proposing to widen the street. That was the second deferral that we withdrew. There's no curb and sidewalk nearby, so we're just asking that be deferred to a time when the township says, hey, we want everybody to put curb and sidewalk along here and have it done all at once so that it's consistent. The second part of that number 3 modification is request to not do some curbing along portions of the parking lot. We're providing curbing along the front of the parking lot near the building, and then also around the curb landscape island as well. But our stormwater concept has stormwater sheet flowing off that. So, and then the back also has a lot of shrubbery and a buffer. So we're asking to not do curbing in those locations. Number 4 is the deferral request for sidewalk. I'll say we did prepare for sidewalk in the stormwater management calculations. Yeah, that's proposed as impervious area. So if that ever goes in the future, the facilities are already designed to account for that. Number 5 is a modification of the stormwater management ordinance for the loading ratios for the facility. We have basically the basin infiltrates the 100-year storm. Even while doing that for the 2-year storm, the one that this modification refers to, our depth is only a little over 10 inches deep, and it dewaters fairly quickly. So those are the kind of things we look for with loading ratios, is to see whether that's appropriate. And we're well within DEP guidelines with those things, but not the loading ratio guidelines. So we're asking that be modified. Number 6 is plan scale. We have some plans that are bigger, more readable, we think, than what the township's ordinance requires. Number 7 is minimum pipe diameter. We're proposing 1 inlet, and you can't see it on that plan, maybe the next sheet might have it. We're proposing 1 inlet along southeast and that would catch the drainage from the widening that we're going to do. And it takes it into the basin. The floor of our basin is somewhat limited by bedrock. We're trying to avoid that. We're trying to keep our 2-foot limiting zone with the bedrock. So when we do that, it gives us not quite enough cover to put 15 inches of pipe. So we have a 12-inch pipe proposed. None of it's within the street. It just goes from the edge of the street, short section, right into that basin. So we're asking that. We talked that over with Charlie, and we said, hey, we could do a couple of different things here. Which do you prefer? The 12-inch diameter pipe was what we said. But that would require modification. And the last thing is modifying the drain time. Ordinance requires, so there's 2 sort of dewatering requirements in the ordinance. One is for volume control, which is 24 hours, and one is for the 100-year storm rate control, which is 72 hours. I'm sorry, I had it backwards. Volume control is 72 hours, rate control is 24 hours. We do not meet the rate control one. In other words, we're taking the 100-year storm, it stays all in that basin, and then it infiltrates, and it takes 42.5 hours to infiltrate. I should say 42.5, that's an engineer. It takes a little over a day, about a day and a half to dewater. And so that rate control time is more than the township's ordinance allows. I do point out in the modification request that if you take the 24 hours from the volume control and 24 hours from rate control and the 72 hours that you're allowed from volume control, we're within that overall concept. In other words, the basin will dewater sooner than some other basins might, just because of the way we've designed it. And those are the modifications. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Okay. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate the presentation. Gentlemen, you've all seen the township engineer's letter and several notes that Ben was referencing as well, too. Questions so far on his presentation? Ben,
yes.
I'll just say as an initial comment, it's the overall project is a great, in my view, it's a great example of infill in a 1950s, 1940s era suburban development on the edge of the metro area that is part of our urbanized area of our township. And, there are parcels throughout there that are various sizes and various types and various ages. And it's a mixture of residential dwellings and, to see us fill in and use, I mean, it's a big lot on the edge of that. And to see the single family residence remain, the outside of that's in great condition. I've never been in the interior of that, but just to see that, you're coming up with an idea, Elvin in particular, of how to use the space, I think is a great example of some of what we've been trying to cast as a vision for our comprehensive growth planning for years. It will certainly cause individuals who live in and around that area to be concerned that their community is changing, their neighborhood is changing, they're getting development that wasn't there before, water, sewer, public amenities and so forth. We've heard from a member of the public tonight on how change in her part of the township does cause, things to change. So, but I look at it, this is me speaking, not for the board itself, but I just think as a member of this board who's worked hard since the mid-90s to do comprehensive growth planning at the County Planning Commission and also here, it's a good example of how we're trying to do some of this infill. So my comments.
Good news is we have public water sewer there,
Yeah.
which is a very good thing.
Correct. Infrastructure is excellent.
I agree with your comments.
Thoughts, comments, points? Ethan, anything at all?
County Planning Commission had comments for sidewalk from the proposed parking area out to where you plan sidewalk on Southeastland. Any comments on the County Planning Commission's comments?
Was that the county planning commission or the township planning commission?
It was County Planning Commission.
Yeah.
Town.
Strongly recommended that sidewalks are installed when development occurs on the site. However, the township determines the burning is appropriate because of future road projects and if the in-lieu sidewalk should be considered. So it wasn't specific.
I question that just because the township planning commission also had a similar comment about sidewalks. I just want to make sure I speak to the right ones. The township's question, discussion at the planning commission was about that and about whether a sidewalk should connect the parking lot to the street. There were different opinions on that, and then the planning commission actually made that part of their recommendation, I believe, that that sidewalk be installed from the parking lot to
Onto the street itself.
Yeah.
That county letter does mention, Ethan, too, if there are some sort of deferrals, that perhaps there should be some in lieu of put in place to ensure funds are there for future. Further comments, questions? Ralph, from staff perspective.
My understanding, although I wasn't in attendance at the Township Planning Commission meeting, is that they had also asked that curbing be included in the on-site parking lot along the line against the building. Is that correct?
That's correct. We were already proposing it.
Okay. The only other question I had was that your plan indicates that you plan to pay a fee in lieu of park and recreation, open space fee, but didn't see any proposed calculation of that fee.
Yeah, I might need some help with that.
Okay, it's
Yeah,
0.027 times 12.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Our standard is,
I can ask Siri real quick.
yeah, quickly give it to me.
So it's, that calculates to be, I believe it's 0.324 acres.
Okay.
And the pre-development value of that 0.324 acres.
Okay, and just an appraisal from Mr. Engel, or how do you normally see that determined?
It's, that's usually worked out. There's been a variety of different ways that applicants have proposed that, either, the purchase price of the land, assessed value from county assessment, actual appraisals.
Okay. We'll take a look at that and come up with something, and you can tell us what it works for you.
Thank you. Elvin, you're good. Sorry, you need to speak in the mic. It's so we get it recorded. Thank you, Elvin.
Had that discussion with the maybe putting that flagstone. The space between the end of the building. Some piece of landscaping there, a little bit building there. And as far as aesthetics, I was hoping that we could do something. I was hoping that was something really nice. We had a little bit of discussion, and so maybe put a walking stones. Pavers, not necessarily solid, but just like a walking path through there rather than a sidewalk right through there. Basically, for stones. Then they also got into the discussion, well, maybe we should wait until, like they say, sometimes you should wait to put sidewalk in to see where the walking paths are and put up the big walk. So that's how that sort of led to these stones. So I was just asking if we need to put something there, if we could put something there that kind of fits in the landscape. Rather than just
That Ralph considered pervious then if it were stones through landscape?
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is trying to measure that.
Yeah.
You know, of course, that sort of arrangement is great for the ambulatory, not so great for the non-ambulatory.
Now we're
Right.
probably getting into some handicap access issues.
the driveway goes right alongside it. So as far as ambulatory accessibility, it's used to drive.
I mean, the other thought would be if you're putting in this is 2 6-unit multifamily buildings, but you have, I mean, handicap parking there. If someone wanted to, as opposed to drive a car in a wheelchair, but take the bus, there's a bus stop right at the road. So it makes sense to me to go ahead and put in the sidewalk on Southeastern if you're already in there doing widening, and then make sure there's a sidewalk connection to that, so that someone could, who is handicapped, could take their wheelchair right out and onto the bus.
Oh,
Because you don't want to be driving, people drive on the roads because you can't drive off the roads. So the goal is to get people off the road so they don't have to drive a wheelchair on the road.
Yeah. I mean, the building code calls for something that's going to be there to be handicap accessible.
For the parking lot, you're talking about the parking spaces?
For the, no, to get from the parking spaces out to the sidewalk itself, out to Eastland. Isn't the code going to call for?
That leads to the driveway, John, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Sidewalk to driveway.
yeah.
Sidewalk to driveway, yes, but not from building to sidewalk.
So,
Building code calls for that.
okay, so sidewalk to driveway. That sidewalk and driveway are, it's just going to be that ramp up then. That's
You have
it.
to have a joint
That's
there.
it. Okay.
From staff's perspective, I agree with Ethan. I think there ought to be curb and sidewalk on Southeastland to get people who want to use the bus out to
Down
Lincoln
to
Highway.
Lincoln Highway.
You know, we're hoping to remake Lincoln Highway, so I can certainly understand, you know, holding off
on that.
on the Lincoln Highway side, but on the Southeastland side, I would recommend curb and sidewalk.
Where is the Red Rose Transit Authority bus stop? Is it right at the corner?
Right here.
They'll
Right there.
Oh,
stop.
wow.
It's,
stop
it's
anywhere
on,
right at the
it's on the
corner.
lamppost itself.
On that corner.
I pulled it up, Elvin, to look at it from standing in the middle of Lincoln Highway, looking up Eastland or south on Eastland. You know, somebody, Ethan or Ralph just mentioned, you know, we're now multiple years into our efforts to create a more multimodal aspect to Lincoln Highway. And our Bridgeport mobility plan, just west of that, and then the Lincoln Highway plan are all designed to bring a more multimodal and as Ethan said, accessible infrastructure here. And going up Eastland, I'm with Ralph here and Ethan. I think the sidewalk and the curb on South Eastland, not on Lincoln Highway, because we've got a lot of work to do there. But there, in my estimation, is spot on. I'm sorry, you're saying from there back, you mean south on Eastland? I mean, we've had, since I've been on the board, Elvin, since 12, I don't know, dozens that we've actually worked with to try to put it in when it called for it, or others we've deferred dozens of more too, This to me is one of those it's almost a no-brainer. Multifamily, meaning, 6, 12 units. That's a pretty significant number of individuals, of people and bikes and skateboards and I will tell you, you use this probably 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah, I usually go Crest, but I occasionally go Southeast. There's grade there, right? And I believe Mr. Shannon and a few other neighbors there complained about people coming up that hill and then cresting the hill and coming down pretty fast. Sidewalks on that road make a ton of sense,
especially near the intersection.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna take 100 years before they're all the way
Oh yeah,
south
yeah.
of that.
The
But
land development.
anyone who's walking that road, and you come to an intersection, you're gonna jump on the sidewalk.
Well, and I mean, once again, multifamily, I'm assuming this is rental. This is not condo, it's rental. There's going to be children. They're going to be backpacks. They're going to walk right
School
down there
buses.
and catch a school bus or whatever. I think we have to look at putting that infrastructure in, guys. That's the direction I'm laying. Mike, your thoughts here?
I agree.
You know?
Yeah, it's with
think
that
that
many
would-
people and you are, accommodating for what changes will come on, on Lincoln Highway there, but
Roger, your thoughts? I agree. Sidewalk. And then the applicant is asking for us to consider some creative ideas for inside his property to get from, I guess, the parking area to the roadway. Ethan, you've made some comments on that. You guys, anything else? Thoughts?
Anyone who's able-bodied, they're not gonna need anything, just gonna walk. It's the folks who need extra protection, they're gonna need actual sidewalk. So we're gonna require anything connecting the units to the exterior sidewalk, I would say make it a sidewalk. That's ADA accessible.
Are there, in your design, I don't have a front facing, a facade design, maybe you haven't laid that out yet, but are you envisioning, and maybe our planning is asking, on Eastland, are there going to be facades? Is there going to be doors that are, I'm thinking of the streetscape look on Eastland. On South Eastland, is there a streetscape?
Yeah, I think what John's trying to convey is some sort of facade treatment on the buildings that sort of makes it look like dwellings that would have been developed, had that been developed in the past. So
We thank you, Elvin.
Mhm.
We just had this conversation with High up on
Willow.
on Willow. And then when Ethan was talking about a connector between the building itself to the sidewalk, Ethan, I like the way that you're going with that, Ethan. We did on high built on 340. There's something, I don't know
Yeah,
what
we-
it is.
We missed it for the high development on 340, but the other one that happened a little bit farther west, they did make it look like those are the fronts of the buildings, even though they're probably not used that way.
Okay, and then there's a connector out to a sidewalk, I believe.
Yes.
It's a macadam path, so, you know, something, Ethan, you know, back to your point.
Yeah,
So
if
do you
there's a
have
way
that-
to make that connection, and it's not too far, if that central sort of causeway can be accessible out to just straight out to the road, to Eastland, right there, you're talking. And if we put in the sidewalks already there, you're looking at 10 feet.
Yeah, the way we have it graded, it wouldn't be accessible that way. It really goes up to the road.
Oh, because of the grade drops off, then.
I'm just saying it would.
So if you were going to put a sidewalk, where would it be? North of the driveway or sort of on this, like near the actual driveway?
It'd be between the driveway and the.
Okay,
building, the
so-
building itself.
So,
So right now, the access drive we
Here.
have meets access drive requirements. It
Yeah.
doesn't meet ADA requirements.
Yeah.
So it's steeper than what
Yeah.
ADA requires, but we would put the walkway next to it and try to get ADA accessibility there.
Or get close.
Right. At least, somebody in a wheeled vehicle, get onto it and get where they need to go. Perhaps the slope might not. be
Yeah,
100%.
if it's the same slope as the road, but they're off the road, that sort of meets the spirit of the objective of the.
I think,
That's a big build out.
I think we've given him some idea of what we're looking for. Can you work with it? And, you know, I think you're hearing the board's interest and concerns of trying to, you know, connect the building or the lot itself up to the sidewalk and doing it in a way that allows for individuals who are, you know, needing access and perhaps a wheelchair or other means, okay?
Yeah, I mean, Evelyn and I talked about that after the planning commission meeting, that, it wasn't something that necessarily was a requirement of the ordinance, but it wasn't an unreasonable request. We
Okay.
could see it as-
Planning commission was kind of going the same direction. on
Right.
that. So, okay,
We
guys.
It's hard to argue against.
With respect to the sidewalk on Southeastland, I guess I would just want to clarify from my perspective, that would have to include a radius down at Lincoln Highway with some sort of landing area, an appropriate ADA ramp through the curb, but not extended on Lincoln Highway.
No.
Correct.
It would, to terminate at Lincoln Highway or Southeastern, you're going to have to make accommodation for some sort of,
A landing area.
terminus that's landing space there.
Rather than stopping at the state right of way.
Yeah.
It'd have to go around the radius.
Okay?
Yep.
Um, So what I'm hearing, guys, Ethan, you've been looking at this. Help me to understand which point we just probably 4? Is it 4, guys? Sidewalks, both sides of those 3 minutes of the township. Southeastland, it's probably 4 that we just discussed at great length, right?
4 and the first part of 3.
In the first part of 3. And 3, okay, first part of 3 and 4, what we're looking at bringing together here in a motion would be, maintaining the deferral on Lincoln Highway, but installing on Southeastland.
right.
Okay, Ben, any more points to us? I think we we've got a little bit of cleaning up to do here before we get a motion out on the table.
No,
here,
no,
but
I-
Nothing else. Okay. Elvin,
Yes, that I would-
anything else, Elvin? Anything else? Okay. Okay. All right, gentlemen, we've got the DMA letter of May 16th, but we just had some extensive conversation about points 3 of the first part of 3 and point number 4. And then staff has clarified that as we're addressing those 2 points in a way that we just discussed, that the applicant understand that we're talking about the terminus point of sidewalks on Southeast Lynn, not stopping at the state right of way, but coming into the radius with some sort of a landing space, a platform space there.
That's ADA accessible.
Okay.
And then the fee in lieu of, I'm assuming we can, since we don't have the number now, we can have staff work with the applicant, to come up with a mutually agreeable number. And if staff doesn't believe it's mutually agreeable, you'll bring it back to us.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Want to make that part of your motion?
Ethan's typing. He's got his.
Ethan's
I was hoping.
scribbling away there. Huh? You want to give it a try, Ethan? You want to try it?
Let me just double check. Make sure I have most of this stuff here.
Thanks. Ethan, appreciate it.
One other option to consider that was in I think the notes from the planning commission or the notes from staff here would be for the deferral along Lincoln Highway. We could either do the deferral or do essentially a similar amount of cash towards that Bridgeport. When we do that whole redevelopment, we may be doing it in phases, and it's one of, hey, if you're gonna figure out how much it would cost to put in sidewalks, and then make that essentially a fee or in lieu of that deferral. So that way we'll take care of the whole thing when that happens, as opposed to saying, like, we may end up with something that's a little different or a little wider.
And you're referring specifically just to future improvements on Lincoln Highway.
Yeah.
Up to where their landing area would
So the
then
ordinance
connect.
requires, hey, build sidewalks this many feet, get a quote for that. Because we may end up we may want a sidewalk that's wider than the requirement out of
Mhm, mhm.
or something a little more creative.
Go ahead, Ben.
Flip my hat from developer engineer to municipal engineer. One thing to consider is that if the fee is given to the township and the township builds it, it might be done at prevailing wage.
Right.
And possibly cost more. So it might be to the township's advantage to have the property owner do it, because just a thought.
Well, the thing is, if we do, half a mile all at the same time,
You have scale. right?
scale,
Scale.
right, scale, but I completely agree.
But probably 6 of one, half a dozen of the other too. So your thoughts?
Yeah, the only other dilemma there is a coordination dilemma.
Sure,
So
exactly.
if we're doing
Scale.
a project for half a mile and then we have to stop and say, okay, property owner,
Yeah.
put your 300 feet in.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a coordination challenge.
So,
This is close to Longfellow.
so back
Yeah.
to Ethan's point in the letter is a deferral for the improvements on Lincoln Highway, the sidewalk in Lincoln Highway. We could, if the motion calls for it, we could approve the deferral with a fee in lieu of future, and the township would manage that. So
We could even put it in there as deferral or contribution. That again would be agreed upon with staff.
based upon
Just
conversation
want
with
to say you
staff.
could look at it and say, here's the number that makes sense.
Mhm.
And then you get the choice of saying, hey, we'll do that, or we'll just keep the deferral.
I'd be supportive of that, if your motion wants to include that.
Okay, I'll take a stab at it.
Okay,
Make a motion to continue. What's the word for it?
Accept.
Approve.
To approve.
Approve the plan for 1782 Lincoln Highway East, contingent upon the DMA letter dated May 16th, granting waiver at number 1, skipping number 2, because that was done, deferring a portion of number 3, the curbs along Lincoln Highway, but denying the defer request along South Eastland Drive, and granting the curbing the modification for curbing inside the parking compound, granting that one. And deferring and number 4, the sidewalks along Lincoln Highway East to be deferred, or a cash contribution made as equivalent that can be agreed upon with staff. The developer can choose. 9 requests for the sidewalks along South Eastland Drive, and providing for access with a landing area to the street near Lincoln Highway, as well as sidewalk access into the interior of the property. And then granting number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, and then on the fee in lieu of parklands, to work with staff upon an agreed upon number for that fee in lieu of parkland.
Okay,
And also, yes, a condition on the rest of the letter.
okay. Good, thank you. I think you captured it all. Okay, there's a motion on the table.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Ethan, seconded by Corey. Board questions or concerns about the motion, clarification? Understand? Okay, all right. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you
Thank you
very much. Thank you. Alvin, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, Alvin.
Appreciate the creativity there. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, item number 6D. We have a resolution in reference to DEP sewer planning module for 1782 Lincoln Highway.
Motion to approve.
Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, motion by Ethan, seconded by Mike. Questions or concerns? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item number 6E. We have deferment agreement in reference to treehouse frontage improvements. Ralph, do you want to give us a little bit of introduction here?
Sure. When the board conditionally approved the land development plan for this project, which is related to a new sewage pre-treatment system that the property owner is working on. One of the conditions of approval was that they would enter into a deferment agreement, deferring the required installation of road widening where needed, curb and sidewalk along the 3 road frontages that this property has. Agreement was prepared. It's been reviewed by the township solicitor. It would accomplish the condition that the board set, which essentially requires that the owner prepare plans within 1 year, obtain permits within 2 years, and construct within 3 years of the agreement. So that has been reviewed by township solicitor and staff. It's in order. I don't know if anybody from Treehouse is here this evening that wishes to speak to that. Thank you.
Great. Anyone? No. Very none. Nope. Okay. So we need a motion to approve the deferment agreement for Treehouse.
Make a motion to approve the deferment agreement for treehouse frontage improvements.
For a second? Second. Okay, motion made by Corey, second by Roger. Questions? None? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on, under new business, 7A. Stolzfus sketch plan number 22-08 458 Mount Sydney Road. We have someone here for that? That's great. Yeah, looks good. Thank you. If you want to just grab that mic off of there, you certainly can, or you can lower it, but I think you will need to probably adjust it.
Just grab it. Joyce Gerhart from RDS Associates. This is Doug Parkins from E.G. Stolzfus. And we're here to talk to you about sketch plan for the property at 158 Mount Sydney Road. We're proposing 14 single-family lots. And then there's also the way the property is configured right now, the property that's adjacent to the south here, there's a common driveway. And there's a lot added on to allow this driveway to continue to have access not on Mount Sydney. They have frontage on Mount Sydney, but their access will be proposed road.
Susan, Tara's pointing to it with her cursor up here, just so you can see the drawing itself. So thank you, guys. Okay, sorry, Joyce, go ahead.
Sorry. Just trying to figure out how to get you guys.
Yeah, that's okay. That's perfect. That's why we bought that big old monitor. So
So we have, we wanted to talk to the board pretty much about the layout, and then there are 3 waivers that we have requested. And we can go through those. One is a preliminary plan, one is for curbing. But Doug is telling me that each was willing to withdraw the waiver of curbing. And the other is a waiver of sidewalk along the cul-de-sac. What we're proposing in lieu of providing the sidewalk along the cul-de-sac is to provide, obviously along our frontage sidewalk on Mount Sydney Road, but provide a sidewalk connection from the property up to where the school sidewalk is currently. So that would provide a sidewalk connection up to what is currently the middle school, but is going to be the elementary school.
Yes.
Because we're doing the lot add-on here with the Chubb property, this becomes part of the plan, so we would also be doing frontage improvements in front of that. So that was the proposal as far as sidewalk. There is a comment from DNA. They're suggesting that the pedestrian connection to a trail that is down on the middle school property. The developer would prefer not to do that for a couple of reasons. One of them being they really don't want the children coming through in between individual homes, as it were. Secondly, there's a grade differential. There's about 8 foot of grade drop between this property and where the trail is. And it's all landscaped along that berm. So making that physical connection would be difficult. So the board would prefer not to make that connection and have the children come down. They're suggesting there is property that the school owns that comes on the mountain. And their suggestion is that the school could provide a trail that comes out to that.
Can I speak to that a second, Joyce?
Sure.
Just because it's just dying to come off my tongue. This is becoming a developed part of the township. Susan will tell you. And we've had conversation upon conversation. And we can't get, for all kinds of reasons, every time we talk about this, someone's got a legal reason why I can't put in infrastructure to help pedestrians and children, pedestrians get around. And they're going to do it. They're going to walk there. We've got beautiful trails over at the school. And I mean, this should, I still insist that we should be putting a crosswalk at the top of the hill to Southview, because people are going to use it. It would slow down traffic. Put a blinking arrow there that says, slow down. Kids are walking here. And then I'm not getting upset with you guys, but it's just, we have these conversations and then we kind of back down because the legal issues, and it makes no sense.
Well, that's why we thought, in lieu of putting it into the cul-de-sac, we provide sidewalk, a nice connection for a part of Mount Sydney that at least gets to the school that's north of the property there.
Over here, apartments. Control both this piece of ground and adjacent. So just to be able to do that now, instead of when this gets sold, someday it will.
That's your property, right? Yeah. And you guys are, I mean, I know of some discussions that you've had of consolidating things and moving things to other places. It's been going on for quite some time. It could keep going, but, so those parcels, could become just, a wonderful, livable community interconnected to the school property. I mean, so much going on there.
Yeah, it is a nasty, it would be a nasty connection pedestrian from this site to this.
On the south side, west side is about
But it is perfectly flat. I think this is probably right here.
No,
That's Zimmerman. That's Craig Zimmerman. Yeah.
But they said the
CDs.
same thing. They were like, oh, it needs to be somewhere else. It's too steep.
Everybody says the same thing.
But if you go to, and so so I've walked a bunch of paths in and out of schools. There's up in Manheim
Township.
Manheim
It's
Township.
hilly as
It's a
5K through there.
huge stinking hill. I've ridden my
Yeah.
bike through there. I've run through there.
Yeah, me too.
They're heavily utilized too, and they have little connections into the neighborhoods. And it's one of, the connection isn't for school children to walk in and out. The main connection is going to be for the residents there to be able to access an entire trail network and be able to walk over to Horseshoe Road without going up on the most dangerous section of Horseshoe Road. And then, yes, when the school has their property, we're trying to get them to make that connection piece, and they're hesitant as well. But it's one of the more connections we have. That way, there's not a giant thoroughfare through any single property. But the more connections we can have, so that people can jump off of Mount Sandy Road. Eventually, I agree, having a pedestrian crosswalk on top. I'm on favor of raising it if we could and making it so it slows traffic down. But the more connections we can have, the better, because that's also, you've got Siouxland Drive, an entire neighborhood there, people who could walk out and access all of those walking paths and trails as well. And it's one of the more connections we can have built in when people move in, as opposed to putting them in after the fact, as we've also found.
So,
If they're there when they move in, they love them. If you try to put them in after they moved in, they hate
man,
them.
just fight people tooth and nail. I don't know. I'd like to see something done to try to create a connection.
Because the connections are the key piece, because we don't want little islands of cul-de-sacs if we can help it. The more we can connect those elements, then you actually can build a community where the people actually know people who don't live immediately next door to them.
We have a development that's got 400 plus homes on the books up at Hunsaker and Hunsaker 23 and at Fritz Elementary, Devon's Creek. And it connects over behind Freeze and Frizz. And we had families in here, there's a cul-de-sac, and on the map that they bought it, it shows a connector. And man, they're fighting it tooth and nail. They don't want that coming. We bought the house it showed it on the map. We lived there for a decade. It's not there. We don't want it. Well, some aspects of a community require that everybody has to compromise at some point. If everybody, I mean, truly, every suburbanite would take a cul-de-sac, I'd have a township of cul-de-sacs. Less traffic, less noise. What more your father? Yeah, exactly.
True.
I get it,
That's
though.
true.
I get it.
The connector between Randall and Southridge, what's the history book?
I mean, I haven't heard anything about it since it went in.
No, I know, it's great, but who, was that EG built it when Southridge went in or when Randall Court?
Around the court and
Yes.
after South. Road.
Yeah, it was part of the discussion with both
Okay,
plans.
okay.
That's my recollection.
And that walkway is 2 or 3 feet, like 3 feet, maybe 4 feet? It's pretty narrow. I
On
mean,
the,
it's,
on the plan, I think it's probably wider than that, but
Okay.
Effectively, it's
Okay.
probably about 4
Yeah.
feet.
again, cul-de-sac, I mean, very similar, right? Number of homes. It's an asset, right? I mean, it allows kids that live in that neighborhood to get to, Southridge and then to Lafayette Park. And, yeah, I mean,
Do we have to put a cul-de-sac in? Well, you could get 1, 2, 3, 4. You could get 4 houses there as opposed to 2. I mean, I'm just looking at you. Just. Two of EG's owners have decided they want cul-de-sacs right next to the office. I can see that coming.
So
I mean-
what would need to be done
It's not
on
in the
that
school.
drop
I mean,
off?
If you want to stub it into their
to
neighborhood
create-
property.
Well, they're gonna drive that.
You'd have to have new grading. I mean, even if there was elevation, but it's not, but making it so it's not as severe as what
Yeah,
you're
but
worried about.
It would be a combination of trying to do some kind of grading, and it would wind up going into the school property too, to be able to grade it out so that the trail could get down. I think we'd almost have to go sideways down the slope.
Do a sort of switchback, you mean?
I'm not sure if
That's
it'd be quite a switchback, would come down and go this
Just
way.
gradually go down.
Yeah, which they have that whole side of the hill already landscaped, so that would be a, question we need to talk to the school about and how we can do that. And going straight back, I'm not sure that that's the option either, because that doesn't really get you to the trail. That gets you to an access drive that has a sidewalk next to the school on the other side of the access drive. I'm not sure that that's. the best.
I haven't been back there in a while.
yeah, I know.
I need
I
to
was
see
gonna
it.
ask, what actually is
Been back there in a
there?
while.
Yeah, so on the school plan.
Can you
we-
pull,
yeah,
can
we
you
bring
pull
up
it up
Google.
on Google Maps?
Google Maps is nothing.
Yeah, it's probably not updated.
I just looked for it. Couldn't find it.
Yeah, because it's
Couldn't
Google.
get them.
Yeah, maybe Google.
Did you get 458 up? Did you pull 458 up? You walk to the back of 458? No, it doesn't let you do that.
Is this school?
That's what this one is. 458 Mount Sydney. I don't
Yeah,
think-
you can't, I mean, all the new construction and stuff.
Yeah,
isn't on there
it's
yet,
not
so I
gonna
don't think I
capture
see
it there.
So it's the CV's plan.
So this is the property we're talking.
What sheet have you got? 32?
32. So,
Those topo lines are.
You get a little tight.
yeah, they're so tight together, the black at this scale. And there's another copy of.
Yeah, the path's right
Yeah,
there.
the path is right here, and this is about 8 foot of grade difference between the property line and the path here. And then here, coming down this way, this is about 10 feet, but you have this access drive, and the only connection is to the pedestrian connection is to this sidewalk, which I'm not sure that, I mean, yeah, you can get over to here and get on that trail. but
Man, ideally, it'd just be right there. That's 8 feet.
Yep. So.
Yeah, so it's either you come down, but it would require the school to want to do that, because it was one, they didn't even want to do.
I
up
know,
here.
they fought us on that.
And this is, I mean, if you walk out there, this is relatively flat.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, they said it was too steep.
Well,
So
There
no
is-
other way to,
there,
Yeah.
you know what?
so
there
no
is
other
a-
way to span this? The walking bridge or?
Well,
I
I
mean,
mean,
the
if
only
you look
thing
at the
is
current
steps,
path right
They're
here,
not
Steps.
ADA accessible, so.
well, this path right
mean-
here is already going up similar. So if you took this
Good.
down to right there, it would be the same elevation change like right there is their current.
You mean on the slope, almost
Yeah.
coming on the
So
slope?
it came
Yeah.
down the slope right to there. Yeah. Well, you can get it to the edge,
Well, right, and that's why.
and then we can try to get the school to put it in once people start walking.
No, I agree with you, Doug. We can't make you go on to the other property and do what they're doing, but
We just
we
looked at
can-
it as a practice. Everything's in there. just come down
Yeah.
and try to get that
Yeah.
connection. Where really, I think that's where. we make this connection here. Basically. complete.
The nursery has sidewalk in here. This doesn't. Yeah.
Right.
So he's, yeah, it's favors. So he's does this call for you to sidewalk from the school up? It doesn't. See, it requires you just to sidewalk in front of your,
I think EG is.
with the deferral.
Off the cul-de-sac onto the road.
So is EG saying they would do this piece to get it down to the school front?
Well, this would require township involvement. There's grade and retaining walls.
There's a house right there.
Yeah, it is. It's up, it's just hugs the street there, which is the point we've been making earlier, you know? Your thoughts?
Well, I think the main question is, do you want sidewalk either both sides or one side in the cul-de-sac? And then, depending upon the answer to that, the proposal is to, trade off those sidewalks for alternative sidewalks. In terms of linear feet, I didn't do the math. I don't know if, twice, both sides of the cul-de-sac is the same distance as what you're proposing.
The cul-de-sac would be about twice, yeah. From yeah, from here to here is about 450. The cul-de-sac's about 800 feet long. We will be doing this frontage, but that would be required. So it is a little bit shorter.
What you're proposing versus both sides of the cul-de-sac.
Correct.
My personal view would be is that I would want us to prioritize Mount Sydney Road to accommodate for this 12 lot cul-de-sac development. I would, if we're in a position of having to make that kind of a compromise, I would say for safety reasons, we need to prioritize Mount Sydney. I'm wholly aware that there's a problem on Mount Sydney. And the village growth area that's there, village, what are we calling it?
Village residential.
Village residential. Knowing EG's thoughts of what they have discussed for quite some time about their own parcel there and what they may vacate that and do something there. I think we're only looking at a future where this part of the township gets more development. And if we can accommodate that development, we need to accommodate the development, we must accommodate the development. We need to do it in a way that the infrastructure on Mount Sydney is improving and not status quo or worse, deteriorating.
By way of, I understand this is a different location, and has different features. By way of comparison, Farrell Drive, the development that Mrs. Snyder was referring to. Fair Hill.
Oh, Fair Hill.
The
We
board
did it all-
required
yeah.
one side
One side.
of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, I remember that.
In that situation.
And I'm fine going to one side and getting a connection here. I'd love to, even if there's a way to put a potential easement in, if it connects out to the back of the property, it's provide an easement for a trail at some point would be.
A future
Ideal.
trail.
You also,
What's-
you don't know what's going to happen on that next property.
Those topo lines north, Doug, are those are that's a more modest grade there. So
It's getting-
a future, as Ethan just said, an easement with a future connector this way. You do.
Yeah, there's, so the way that.
Yeah, so.
The park rates weren't great for those two, so we would figure it out. But for the uphill one, actually, it wasn't the best, so we would take back the money to one facility and have more.
Is it all underground?
We were actually talking about making it above ground rain garden, but it's not designed yet, so that was just what we, to be determined.
As I'm back to Ethan's point, I'd love to see us do an easement that goes out that way, connecting. I'm telling you, this is gonna be a place for little kids to live, and they're gonna all walk to school as they get into junior high school. Actually, it's an elementary school now, right? Some families are gonna look at this and go, wow, my kid can walk to elementary, junior high, and high school.
So kind of summarize what I'm hearing. Consider, cul-de-sac, sidewalk,
Mhm.
sidewalk here,
On Mount Sid.
possible. Sense.
Yeah.
So just one of the things I was concerned with is that it's like
No.
Yeah. And that's why I was asking about, Southridge. There's no HOA there. There's no HOA. So
It's
that's
just an easement on that,
straight.
just an easement on that parcel, on that number 6.
Yeah, I was going to ask, who maintains it? I mean, it's in good shape.
Whoever property it's on.
Okay. Interesting. So there's 4 properties or so.
So it almost have to be an easement and a deferral.
What's the total acreage of the whole parcel? Yeah, okay, I'm looking in this corner. It looks like it says 9.9.
9.9.
All right, well, I think we'll.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay.
This, from staff's perspective, this sketch plan was submitted as a formal sketch rather than just an informal discussion. So we would ask the board to take some action to, on this
Recognize,
sketch, my suggestion would be to conditionally approve it, subject to the requirements of the subdivision land development ordinance.
Okay.
So that when they bring in their, final plan, the waivers and things can be acted upon at that point in time.
Okay. Okay. Capturing the conversation we just had, those items that we just discussed as well too.
As much as you want to. I mean, if you take action on the sketch subject to satisfying the ordinance,
Yeah, I think
there'll be a sort of informal understanding, I guess, depending on how the board conveys that message to the representatives tonight.
One of the other comments from the committee was talking about getting the traffic study parameters worked out. We talked to our traffic engineer, and at the PM peak, it's anticipated it's only 16 additional trips. AM peak is on 12. Your ordinance doesn't kick in the traffic study until 100. So I'm not sure that there's anything really to discuss about that.
I mean, you're gonna have to go to PennDOT for the
Right.
for the road. So the only thing that staff is interested in addition with respect to the road, is that it be named Siouxland, so that we don't have to have different street names across from each other.
And is there an east or west, or it's just Siouxland?
It's just Siouxland right now.
Siouxland Drive.
Just continue Siouxland.
And then you can figure out the
House address.
numbering.
House addresses.
Right,
Internal
right, as far as
Yeah.
the postal addresses.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we need to capture some of that discussion, that conversation. Corey, you think you?
Was that? No, not really. I'm telling you,
Well-
allergies are killing me.
Maybe if you guys
All
could
right,
help,
all right, that's all
help
right.
with the end.
Got a question.
Yep.
Question.
Go get a public, yes. Yeah. Joyce, if we can just, sorry, name, obviously.
John Hill, 485 minutes of the road, the other side of the intersection. Starting at the school property and EG's existing property, there is a separate lot on the front corner. EG's property is actually 2 lots.
Okay,
Up until about where the Boyd driveway is now. When it rains, the road is covered with 6 inches. Water. It's over the curb of the school. This is where you're draining to. You drain all this out on the road more than what it is now because of the impervious surface. You're adding all the buildings, you're adding all the driveways, you're adding sidewalks, you're adding a lot. It's not sufficient now. Make sure it is later.
Joyce, can you speak to that? Thank you.
So there will be curbing that will be put in along that frontage, and there will be drainage inlets and storm pipes that will be put in along that frontage and connect down to the storm system that's down in front of the school property. There's an inlet right at the end of the school property right now, but I think you're right. I think it gets inundated during storms. It is the townships. Well, it's
State highway.
PennDOT,
Yeah, it's
it's-
PennDOT.
But a couple years ago, the state decided that everything was the townships, so.
See.
Yeah. So it's,
I see the school cleaning off the top once in a while. I've never seen it. Never seen them flush anything. It's not sufficient now. It's over the sidewalk. EG's front yard is lower than the sidewalk.
I think, at the school, they're lower than the school sidewalk.
Yeah. So you're right. They're above the road. Before they hit the road. So for the sidewalk, you put it down. You
It's,
need a curb that's higher than the road. So that's like that. Right, road over this. 20 feet high. And now you're putting more.
there will be stormwater controls for this development that capture the runoff and infiltrate it before it goes out into the storm system. Now, that's just for the new impervious, not for.
problem.
We'll have to analyze,
Sure.
yeah, we'll have to analyze the better flow and make sure that it meets the requirements.
Yeah. And I think in particular, what you're referencing, John, is EG's existing office property, the old Boyd property. We're not addressing that, obviously, with this. We're addressing this parcel, the Whitmer tract. With this development, we can address the Whitmer tract, which could help with what's currently coming off of that Whitmer tract onto the EG tract. I don't think it's going to hurt it. I think it's going to help that. We're not doing anything for the EG tract with this.
We have to take the pipes. We have to take the pipe from here to that connection here. So we can put it to help capture that.
Okay. So I'm hearing,
His point was that the basin won't handle the condition.
the basin,
He couldn't tie into that. That was when the school was built. Now, I don't know. Again, well, that's kind of, well, that's school. I'm not saying school was right. I'm just saying the thought process back then was that the school drainage, figured out, engineers, they couldn't put anything in.
I'm not following you, John, but we do have our stormwater management ordinance and they'll be required to comply with that. PennDOT has its own stormwater management requirements and when you're designing something in the state highway, and all of those will be complied with.
for the, yeah, I'm sure you
We
will.
know you, John.
Actually, John, anytime, John. But we are only addressing at this point the stormwater that is coming off of this Whitmer tract. And, you know, everything that I've come to understand about the way in which we have learned how to manage stormwater tells me this will be an improvement upon what's coming off of the Whitmer tract. This will have minimal impact about what's coming off the EG tract. If this impacts the EG tract, I'm sure it does to some degree. It should help something. But I'm not saying that we can do something about what's happening on the EG tract. Okay. Okay. All right. I delayed a little bit longer. Did you have a
Thanks.
chance to
Yeah,
think
I
about
went-
that motion or not? You didn't have a
No,
chance to
I
think
had
about
to
that.
go to the rest of the meeting.
Roger, Mike, somebody wanted to take a stab at this? Sorry, Susan, say it one more time. She can't answer that question.
Once again, we're looking like profit building, selling. These actually years for getting this through.
Susan, we've had the conversation before. The Constitution allows someone to do with their property what they're going to do as long as it meets the local ordinances and building codes. To do what, Susan? This township doesn't own a water system. We work with the city of Lancaster's Water Bureau, and we try very hard to work with them. And when we can work with the city water bureau, we do. So, Susan, we do work with the city. You may not think so, but we do. So thoughts, comments, further, anything else? Okay, all right. We need a motion. Oh, man, he's down there taking, look at those notes,
I'll need help.
seriously. I
You
love
can
it.
do it simply and just conditional on the saldo.
Well,
And then we could deal with all this then.
make a motion that the board conditionally approve the Stoltzfus sketch plan 22-08 for 458 Mount Sydney Road, subject to compliance with all the requirements of the subdivision and land development ordinance. We have talked about a couple of things here, so I could add conditional approval includes a sidewalk on one side of the cul-de-sac, the extension of sidewalks along the Stoltzfus property that's congruent to this project. And help me with this, creating a proposal for an easement intended to connect a walking path owned by the school district to the western portion of the property.
Mhm. Did we capture anything about open space, Ralph?
As long as it's subject to the remainder of the saldo.
You captured it in the saldo, your comments in the saldo captured that. Roger, did you have something to add?
It's something that, since we're not controlling any of the school property, that the easement from the supervisors and is the most critical thing. Up to work it out with school later. We understand that the developer won't have control once it hits school property. But we want the effort made by you to get to that line. And we'll take over from there.
Correct, correct. Okay, Mike, motion?
This motion.
Okay, good. Motion's on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motions are made by Mike, second by Roger. Questions, concerns? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, guys, very much. Thank you for your help. Okay. Thank you, Ralph. It's okay. New business, 7B, Pine Hill Stormwater Management Plan number 2210, 841 Willow Road. Is there someone here on behalf of this? Yep. You guys, sorry, I have to step up. We have to record that for the minutes, so, and you'll have to raise it. You can just, yeah, pull it off. Yep, there you go.
Yeah, Mike Garman here on behalf of Pine Hill.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. What are you asking of the board, Mike?
So I'm asking for approval of our stormwater management plan that we had submitted, have reviewed, have the cost opinion. Include it. Have the funds for the cost opinion.
Okay. Have you seen the township's engineer's letter of May 24, Mike?
Yes.
Okay. Looks like 4 waivers or modification notes. A general note, and then of course, the stormwater management, and then the fee amount represented in there as well too. So thoughts, concerns, anything else about this?
Not for my.
Okay.
Pine Hill's end.
Okay, all right. Gentlemen?
Yeah.
Anything?
Make a motion to approve stormwater management plan for 841 Willow Road, conditioned on the May 24th DMA letter.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Ethan, seconded by Corey. Questions or concerns? Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see here. Item number 7C, a public hearing on renewal of the cable TV franchise with Comcast. Ralph?
The current franchise agreement with Comcast ends in December of this year. And so process in terms of renewal involves having a public hearing on the proposed renewal. taking input from the public on things like service. The township does not have control over the amount that's charged by Comcast, although that is a frequent complaint that we hear. And so, any input from the public is what you're to hear during the public hearing. And then at the conclusion of the public hearing, the board can, if you wish, take action on the ordinance that would approve of a new agreement with Comcast. This agreement is proposed very similar language to the agreement that you approved for Chantel recently.
And the fee is what, Ralph?
Whatever Comcast decides to charge for the franchise fee? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No. Oh,
yeah.
Sure. Surely I'm not going to start that conversation.
Thank you.
No, the franchise
fee
fee.
is 5% of the specific revenues that it can apply to. It cannot apply to things like charges for internet service. So it's a cable TV franchise.
And what does the township bring in from that?
It's about $250,000 annually.
Thank you. Yeah, the fees for services.
Sorry, I
wouldn't go down that path. So, okay. Questions from the public?
15 years.
So no questions, concerns, gentlemen? So we've got one with Chantel and now we have one with Comcast.
We have had one with Comcast for a long time.
But this will be a renewal for the next 15. So. Okay, right?
That's a typo.
Further conversation, discussion? None? Okay, hearing none. I can close the public hearing. Is this vote to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion by Ethan, second by Roger to close the public hearing. And we need to then accept the agreement, correct, Ralph?
Yeah, the first item under your action items is the ordinance for the franchise agreement.
Okay, under action items 8A, the adoption of the ordinance I guess, accept the Comcast cable TV franchise agreement.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Ethan, second by Roger. Questions or concerns? Hearing none, those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, 8B, a letter to the Lancaster County Conservancy District in reference to the memorandum of understanding. Ralph.
We've talked with the board at previous meetings about concerns that we've had with the Conservation District's performance with respect to the current memorandum of understanding. The memorandum of understanding was proposed to be changed by the Conservation District. They sent that to us earlier in the year. We reviewed it, had some concerns. We asked for and had a meeting with the director and outlined those concerns and suggestions for changes to the MOU. We have not heard, that meeting was in April. We have not heard any response from that meeting. We've had ongoing problems with both projects as well as development plans from the time that they're submitted to Conservation District for review. Takes an excessive amount of time for those reviews to come back. I had sent a letter to the district last year asking questions about that and asking for improved response. I did get a response to that, but the performance has not changed. It's still poor. I believe at previous meetings, you've also heard from representatives of developers who are making presentations to you have said that the time issues that they have with these projects are now a function of the Conservation District rather than a function of PennDOT or DEP, which is
Not in order you want to be in
Not-
rank.
Yeah, it's not good. So I asked Tara to draft a letter that would go to the district and their district manager. And I'm suggesting that this letter, rather than being from staff, could be conveyed from the board, if that's your wish. So we've reached a level of frustration where we feel like some board action would be helpful.
Are we citing something specific? Do we have specific knowledge of something specific that's caused this to happen?
Well, what we've heard from the Conservation District is a lack of staffing, appropriate staffing to manage their workload. They have, for lack of a better term, unloaded some of their responsibilities back to DEP. So they've been trying to lighten their workload by getting rid of some of it. So they have done that. But that hasn't seemed to make any difference on our end anyway. But they have on a number of occasions said that, they're lacking staffing.
Okay.
Is it possible for them to contract some of their work?
I don't know their, their governing documents and agreements with DEP.
I was thinking of components of what they actually do. Can they contract with someone to help with that if they're, that's what's happening with people that are short-staffed?
Yeah, I mean.
But holding up this many people with development
Yeah,
and public projects, it's just not acceptable.
yeah. By way of example, I mean, we do that, with some of our stormwater management responsibilities for, pre-construction, post-construction. We have township engineer that, reviews plans, goes out and does observations. So we contract for some of those services. Unless there's something in their governing rules that prevents it, I don't
Yeah.
see why they couldn't.
They couldn't do the same thing.
Again, they'd have to have a budget for it. You've provided a budget for those
Yeah.
things
Have to come
for us, but
from the county.
wherever their revenues come from, it would have to come from there.
I have no problem with it. I think it's a great idea. Let's raise the temperature on this thing a little bit and see if we can't get somebody responds. You guys in favor?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yep. You want us to take, you just
Whatever you're
prepare the
comfortable.
letter and we'll sign.
Okay.
Okay. 8C is the item that I added.
Yes, thank you.
Yep, acceptance of bills for several township public work items for sale on municipal.
Right, there were 10 items that were put on this website bidding platform that we use for municipal equipment that we no longer have a use for. We provided a list and the amount of the high bid. All those numbers combined is $13,551 in total bids. But these are pieces that we no longer have a use for and can turn them into some revenue. So we request that you approve accepting those high bids.
My only question is the winner of the fluorescent lights at $1. Is there a shipping cost? Did they pick those up? Is it, what's the
Yeah,
logistics of
The
that?
other extraneous costs are not the townships, they're
Okay.
the bidders' costs.
Got it. Good to hear.
I gotta assume that the Charlie bid on those. All right, so can we accept the bids as presented?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
motion by Ethan, second by Corey. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Item 9, managers report.
Thank you. Want to report on a couple of things. We had some discussion with the board about the Connects 2040 implementation program. This is a transportation program run by the county planning department. It used to be called the Smart Growth Transportation Program. The submission of notices of intent to apply were due on May 23rd, and we submitted 3 NOIs. One was for conversion of that section, a section of 462 From the Bridgeport Mobility Plan, this would be the section between Tennyson Drive and Greenfield Road. Estimated project costs, and this would be to do what they call a road diet. You know, you go from what's currently 4 lanes down to 3 lanes and provide, you know, wide shoulders and sidewalks on both sides. Estimated project costs about 2.5 million, and the township's contribution to that, match to that, would be the pre-construction costs, which are estimated to be $500,000. The second project that was submitted, actually the next 2 are both studies. Well, what the program calls studies, and the preparation of conceptual plans. The first one would be for an extension of the Lancaster Heritage Pathway going west, adjacent to Walnut Street, basically from a point where it would diverge. Staff has up on the screen. Right now, it diverges off of the extension and then is proposed to come in Oak Grove. This study would look at it to continue along Walnut Street to get to the city water plant property as a continuation of that trail. Estimated project costs are $100,000, and the township's contribution would be $20,000 toward that. The third one is conceptual plan for the other side of what I was just talking about, would be to, it's basically ending here right now at the end of Oak Grove Drive, and this would look at, going down Oak Grove to Pitney and into Conestoga Pines.
Okay.
Ultimately, the plan would hopefully be for both of those things to happen, so that, it would create a loop within the Heritage Pathway that could be used as an amenity. Any of these projects would have to be submitted with the City of Lancaster as a co-applicant. Staff has talked with their staff, and we don't see that being any problem at all. Interestingly enough, the middle one, going along Walnut Street to the waterworks, does go through Manheim Township.
Right.
Little sliver.
Yeah.
So they would have to be involved, and staff has had communication with them as well. If the board does decide that you want to submit more than one of these 3 projects, you have to prioritize. We have to tell them as part of the application process how they're prioritized from the board's perspective. Applications are going, the notices of intent have been reviewed by county staff. They have been found to be eligible projects, and they have sent us applications to submit if the board chooses to.
Good.
They're due July 1st. So at your next meeting, June 20, we're going to ask you to decide, which or how many of these 3 you want to submit.
So Hutch, are we the submitting party, meaning if Lancaster City is the co-applicant and they are a submitting party on another application, do they have to sort this or rank this compared to stuff that they are the main applicant? Like who ranks?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think
The main
No.
applicant.
the main applicant
Yeah, okay,
would be,
okay. And I've asked this before, applications that have co-applicants, multiple municipalities do better typically on
Yes.
scoring.
yes, it's a definite advantage in the process.
Good.
So, part of the decision making, of course, is the match. So, the board, these projects aren't going to happen. The studies would happen more quickly than the construction would happen on 462, but the board would have to be prepared to allocate funds for those, whichever ones you want to submit.
So do you need us to give you a priority
Well, I mean, we're going to put energy into whichever ones you want us to put energy into. So the sooner we can get started on
Okay.
those applications, the better.
Mhm.
So if you want to say, hey, we're only interested in, the construction one and one of the studies, then we can focus accordingly.
All three. Yeah. We like all three. So if the MPO asks which is the priority, you can say all three.
Yeah, they won't accept that.
They won't accept
as-
that,
As
huh?
our answer.
Yeah.
They're going to want
Yeah.
a 1, 2, and a 3
Yeah.
next to them.
Prioritize, guys. How do you
I mean,
prioritize?
You don't, since, if you're telling us you want all 3 of them submitted, we're going to work on those applications no matter what you decide. So you can decide
Okay.
on the 20th
Okay.
if you want to,
Good.
as to which
Yeah.
ranking
Yep.
you're looking for.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate the effort, appreciate staff putting the time and the energy into these kinds of things. It just, East Lampeter, I was not at the ribbon cutting on Thursday for the trestle bridge. Was anybody else there
No,
with the
but
trestle
yeah,
bridge?
No, but
You were at the trestle bridge cutting?
I wasn't at it,
No.
but I saw it.
So I, as a member of Lix Mama's board, I was invited to go. Lix Mama put a hefty amount of money into that. But I just couldn't get away from work. But if you haven't seen it yet, it is unbelievable. I was there on Saturday afternoon. I mean, it is an unbelievable project. Holy cow. And, Mike Doman, Scott Standish are talking about the Heritage Pathway and the infrastructure we're putting in for multimodal all around. And I said, this board's very committed to creating a very diverse, infrastructure in our township to get people around. And they said, we see it, we know it. So, okay. All right.
Somewhat related, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Somewhat related to that, I'll just mention this as I was going to in C. The Walnut Street Extension Project and that section of the Lancaster Heritage Pathway is happening. The project received bids. The bid is going to be awarded. And if it hasn't already been awarded, we expect there to be a notice to proceed probably in mid-July. And the construction will begin shortly thereafter for that section for the road, from the end of the interchange there at 30 and Walnut Street to the cul-de-sac where it hits Ben Franklin to Greenfield, and the adjacent Heritage Pathway with the trailhead up behind the school. So we're excited about that. That's going to be a good project.
Should see dirt moving in July, end of July.
Yeah, I think so. If everything goes according to schedule at this point.
Okay, good.
MS4 update, I just wanted to share some information with you, although most of this, goes through the authority since, the authority is the owner operator of the stormwater system at this point, but it's sort of unique. I'm going to let Tara describe it so that I don't stumble over it too much, but it's a interesting collaboration.
Actually, credits by installing the agricultural properties at a linear area or just outside of the structural above and beyond the baseline of conservation anything above that level, that baseline level. They right on their partnership, right, national wet farms, plans or established plans. Install the VMPs above baseline, to baseline and then sell those credits to either developer or construction store credit or to power credits or we've been working with farmers in several areas. 30 farms.
Mm.
Wow,
Mm.
wow.
Mm.
And 150,000 as a percent of what we need to do is that, yeah. like- Okay. Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
20%.
yeah. Wow.
And what is the value of that on the marketplace to developers? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So we should be seeing a proposed agreement that would include all those sorts of provisions with it.
Okay.
We'll be taking that to the sewer authority
Hmm.
for consideration. And, based upon where we are with other pollution reduction projects, we'll have to figure out, how much of that we want to try to purchase as credits, how much would be for this permit cycle, how much could be for the next permit cycle. So there'll be some decision-making that'll have to be made there, but I thought it was kind of an interesting approach to things and wanted you to be aware of it.
Wow. Put the capital to work and it certainly comes up with a creative plan, doesn't it? Oh, yeah. Did you have any idea?
They take the content. There's a couple other bigger ways you can do it too.
Somebody's out there making money off of it all they can. Okay. That's it.
Right? That was it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay. Item number 10, adjournment, gentlemen.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion by Pori, second by Ethan. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.